Doing something? Okay, we'll wait till the Marines get back, but I want him to know that the Navy's here, ready to roll. All right, man.
He's coming now.
He's coming now?
Faster.
All right, man.
But I don't feel bad. I was faster. I was like, I can't do it.
Here he is. Here he is. All right, we're going to call the meeting of the Board of Supervisors back to order. We're now going to take up another public comment period. So who wants to go first? Sharon, come on. Talk to us about art and culture. We need a little bit of that today. All right.
Sharon Ross, Capital City Arts Initiative. Thank you for your time and hospitality. I want to welcome you to the new exhibition that we hung on Wednesday. The show is called Smaller Works. It's a companion exhibition to the show we have over at the courthouse. The artist Gil Martin is from Fallon, and when we did a studio visit with him, he had so much work we thought, it's so amazing we can't just do it in one site. So you get to have it here as well. The pieces, the title comes from the fact that two of the pieces, most of the pieces over at the courthouse are much larger. Two of them are, one's like 8 feet by 16 feet, the other one's 4 by 15 feet, so these are smaller. He does his pieces, the paints he uses are natural earth, and the pieces in here are all on handmade paper. You'll get to enjoy them through 4th of July. The essay I gave you, we commissioned essays for the courthouse exhibition, but since Gil is showing work on both sides, I have the essay back there. You get to have it too. Back on the wall is wall text, if you'd like to read more about it. We're working with Pioneer High School. Pioneer is their art teacher's going to bring their art class down here on a field trip. He said Sierra Room's great. It's easy walking distance. Gil did art workshop yesterday with Dayton High School and this morning with Carson High School. In the packet, I gave you a Nevada Neighbors flyer. The arts writer, the woman that wrote the essay, is going to do a talk on Tuesday at the Brick. And the show that we have up at the Brick is Art from WNC. It's a pretty amazing show. It's a good show. I'm very proud of it. So, any questions?
No, but I'd just like to, I think on behalf of all of us here, I'd like to thank you for doing this and thank the organization for doing it. You know,
Thank you.
Sometimes things gets a little tough here in this room, a little, you know, a little tight. I wouldn't call it testy, but a little tight. But it's always nice to look at art because it kind of gets you grounded back to where you should be. And the world's not going to end because we get a debate or something like that. And I think it's really nice to do that. And I know all of us up here appreciate art and culture.
Thank you.
It's a big part of not only, our community, but it's a big part of what, we were talking earlier today about sense of place and stuff like that. So that's good. And I see that one of our artists, the art and culture guy he's got his finger on the button down there. He's going to speak now. So.
What he said.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for enjoying the work, for looking, and for your hospitality. We so appreciate partnering with the city. Thank you very, very much.
Well, and it's also a nice place to go to the courthouse. I know we all kind of see, the courthouse is another one where, you're down there for different reasons. Unless you're there for an adoption, it's usually not a pleasant place to go. And so, art kind of settles things down, and then the Brick does the same thing. So.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Keep it up.
Thanks.
Keep it up.
So much.
All right. Tell your group, from all of us up here, thank you. All right.
Bye.
And while you're at it, say hello to your husband from all of us, too.
I will.
All right.
He's on the golf course. He's very
All right. All right.
Finally.
All right.
Smarter than the rest of us.
It's a beautiful day to golf. All right. Garrett, Mr. Lapierre, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Board, for giving me the chance to comment on public comment. I know the agenda item for the Ormsby House was taken off today, but I just wanted to make a quick mention. I'm not sure why that was taken off the agenda, but...
Because Kim Fegan's not here. She couldn't make it.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, that's all.
My hope would be, and maybe once you guys get out of here, you could drive by there and see. My hope is that in 2 weeks that you guys will see that the parking lot still has not been finished, even after that 90-day window. And I just want to make sure that, get you guys thinking about whether they fulfilled what they should have been doing in that 90-day window to finish it. I know some of the weather will be the thing that they bring up about that wasn't done, but I'd like to remind you that after that board meeting, they had 45 days until Nevada Day, and they didn't start any work until after Nevada Day started. So they let 45 days pass with good weather without any of that going on. So okay. I'll be back in a couple weeks to be here for that, but I wanted to make mention that as of today still that parking lot's still not done, and I hope you keep that in mind when you see that agenda item again.
Okay, thanks, Garrett. Mr. LaPierre, thank you. All right. While we're on public comment, anybody else on public comment stuff? We'll have public comment as we go through, and as well as at the end. All right, then if there's nothing further under comment, let's take up item 20 alpha. This is to appoint one member to the 911 Surcharge Advisory Committee. This is to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2017. We have one applicant, Stacy Giomi. If the board pleases, we'll take a motion to appoint Stacy Giomi to that position, unless you want to hear him come up. Motion's in order.
I move to appoint Stacy Giomi to the 911 Surcharge Advisory Committee to fill an unexpired term ending on December 31, 2017.
Motion, a couple seconds on a motion discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Let's move to the Historic Resources Committee. We have a disclosures in order.
NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from participating when I have a disqualifying conflict of interest. I'm currently working on a project to do interior design work. Rob Darney was also contracted for his architecture work on the same project. However, I do not have a substantial and continuing business or familiar or similar relationship with Rob Darney, and that would rise to the level of disqualifying conflict of interest, and therefore, unless I have a disqualifying conflict, I am required to vote. As such, I will be voting on this matter.
Very good. All right. On this item, Mr. City Manager, you correct me if I'm wrong. We have 2 positions, 3 people. Mike Drews and Robert Darney have applied for reappointment, and Rebecca is a new applicant. Robert Darney fills the architectural position?
Correct.
And
correct.
He's the only
so that's a one-on-one reappointment.
And then Michael and Rebecca,
that will be competitive.
Competitive interview between them. With that in mind, the board will entertain a motion to appoint Robert Darney to the position as an architect or design professional with experience in historic preservation.
I have a clarification. Nick, did you already appoint him? Because the language in our packet says ratify your decision. So are we ratifying your decision, or are we making a motion to appoint?
Yeah,
okay, so that's fine. So I move to appoint Rob Darney to the Historic Resources Commission in the architect or design professional category for a term that expires in February 2021.
Second.
Motion and a second on a motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's take up Michael and Rebecca. Who wants to? Michael, come on up. Rebecca just walked out. Okay, good. How you doing, Mr. Drews?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. How are you?
Good to see you. Did you bring all this good weather?
I did.
You did?
Actually, I was supposed to be skiing this morning, but my dentist called and said, can you come in early? So.
Oh, all right, all right.
I missed it.
So why do you want to do this again? You've been the anchor for historic HRC for years. Why do you want to do this?
It's all I know. The historic district in Carson means a lot to me. It means a lot to the community, and I think I bring to it some qualifications that are hard to find in any community. I've got long experience with Section 106 of the Historic Preservation Act. I can probably recite to you the Secretary of Standards for Rehabilitation. I was first appointed as a member of the old Historic Commission in 1989. I've got the institutional memory for this commission. I think Rob Darney is the next highest tenure on our board, and I think he was still drawing houses with crayons when I was appointed to the commission. I suppose it's a passion, but it's more than that. I really enjoy the district. I enjoy the role that the Historic Resources Commission takes in preserving it, and would like to stay on.
Understood. Okay. Questions? Go.
Hi, Mike, how are you? All right, passionate voices are heard when remodel or new construction is proposed in the historic district, which has to meet standards set for the historic district. What is your approach when the majority speaking in the room do not want the project, but you know it's met all the criteria?
That's probably the toughest thing that any commission has to deal with, because it's the more subjective we become, the less authority we really have. So my approach has always been, let's look at the standards that both Carson City Historic District and the Secretary set. If this application meets those standards and is compatible with the district, then I feel like we should follow those. And we've had appeals before, and that's what stands up to appeal, not the subjective decision.
I have a question, but first I'd like a clarification. Adriana, in the policies for committees, there's a 12-year term out. And I think if I remember it correctly, it's from the point that we approved the policy, okay, which was 2 years ago. I just want to make sure that there's not an issue here with reappointment.
I have it here. I can take a look at it just to make sure.
Great. Just don't want to get ourselves in trouble here. So my question is, what are your thoughts on expanding the historic district to the east side of Carson Street?
I would love to expand it both to the east side, and there's some mid-century modern neighborhoods on the west side that we could easily expand that way too. One of the issues that we had when the commission started back in the mid-1980s was public support. I think we certainly have public support for the historic district as it stands now. I think we'd have to do a lot of PR work to expand either further west or further east. Those properties certainly deserve to be protected. The east side's got some real architectural gems, and I'd hate to see those go. I mean, there's been some little projects there. Community development has been good about channeling some of the little projects on the east side through us, just to get an opinion to see if they'd be compatible. But I'd be all for the expansion, as long as the board and the city are behind us and think it's a good idea.
And I just think there's been a lot of talk about creating a Green Line tour on the east side, and these would go hand in hand.
They not only go hand in hand, but I think we could probably get some community development or historic preservation funds to help fund that. I know we're doing some work on the west side with the Blue Line Trail this year and updating some of that. So it's the commission can really help, and I'd love to see us expand. There is a lot more to Carson than just the west side.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi. Oh, go ahead.
So there is a maximum limit of 12 years, 12 consecutive years. So, and I'm not sure.
Effective date.
Could I address that? Yeah. One of the issues with the Historic Resources Commission is, as a certified local government, we have to meet National Park Service guidelines. We're actually certified by the National Park Service. It allows us to get historic preservation funds. Within our charter, we have some pretty restrictive language about the membership on that board. One is what we're hearing today. We've got history, archaeology, historic architecture. It's incredibly difficult to fill some of the positions on our board. We've had just an architect position that remained open for 2 years, I think, before someone stepped up to take it. We had some testimony when we were looking at policies about it, and the board at that time decided we'll just play it, kind of play it by ear, case by case. And that's kind of how that goes. It's a policy. For this board, it can be very hard. And this is the first time I've had to interview for the historic position. We finally had somebody else step up, and I think that's great. But that's why this commission doesn't quite fit with the requirements of that policy.
And as I recall, Susan Dorpansky addressed that when we were going through all of that as it being difficult to apply it across the board.
I'm going to go with my question, and then we'll think about that on discussion. There's been a lot of newspaper and a lot of articles back and forth and comments from the general public even on the Jack's Bar. So tell me from the historic preservation perspective is when is a building finally met its match? How do you know? What do you use to make that determination?
It's really hard to know because money can solve almost every problem, but applicants aren't always willing. Jack's Bar is kind of an interesting example because it's outside of the historic district. It is, however, listed on the National Register of Historic Places. If someone wants to do something with Jack's Bar, they have to come before us, but we don't have a lot of direct authority to force anything to be done. We do have a demolition by neglect ordinance, which we could bring into effect. But again, it's, we have to be careful working with the public. I don't want to ever be in a position where I'm telling the public exactly what they have to do. We need that cooperation. And Jack's Bar is in the condition now that it's going to need some major work. I was there 2 years ago looking at it, and it needed major work then. I'm very concerned about it. And I think it's just working with the property owner. Always, the sooner the better. I mean, if we could have jumped on this 10 years ago when I think it was first purchased, and there was some interest from the Carson City Historical Society in acquiring it, we would have been much better off. The upgrades would have been, or restoration would have been much less costly. But we just have to work with the development. There's no set standard as to when we can say, no, it's too far gone. I mean, it works with historic windows, it works with porches, and it works with whole buildings. I mean, if the owner wants to put money into it, we'll help them figure out how to spend it.
Michael, I don't generally like hypothetical questions, but this seems a perfect place to use one. If you, instead of being a Historic Resources Commission member, were the Historic Resources Commission czar, what 3 things would you do in the Blue Line District that are on your top wish list?
Some of them are, I guess the main one's actually coming to fruition. I talked to Joel Dunn, a couple years ago. Susan Dorpansky and I met with him, and we talked about electronic media and the advantages of electronic media for virtual tours and everything else. A virtual tour of the of the Blue Line is coming online soon. We're working, got some money from Historic Preservation Fund to help with that app, and that's coming. So that would be one major thing. Keeping up the tour itself, we had, again, that's something that's moving forward. We put together the tour, had a nice blue line painted, had brochures made up. And we let that drop. I think it's something we have to keep in the forefront from now on and make sure that we're updating things. We could certainly add some other properties to it. And then I guess the third thing kind of goes back to what Brad was saying. Let's expand it. Let's look at other properties on the east side. Let's look at some more recent properties.
Yeah, but Brad wants to change the color to green over there.
Well, if you're blue-green colorblind, it all works. So I think those would be the three things: is leverage the information that we have there, expand it, add some properties within the tour, and expand to other parts of the city.
Anything else, board? Anything you want to add, Mike?
No, I think
Well, I think on behalf of all of us, I don't know how these votes come out, but we know your dedication to your community and what you've done for HRC over the years.
I guess I would like to say, if you decide that the other applicant should serve, I will still work with community development, the rest of the city, and
I wouldn't think you'd do anything but that.
I'm not going away.
Wouldn't think you would do anything. I mean, it's in your blood. All right. District Attorney, what'd I do wrong?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, boy.
I just wanted to come back to that question from Supervisor Bonkowski. And the bylaws for HRC do not provide for term limits, and especially in these specialized positions. With regard to your policy, you did make, this came up once before, and you determined that this would start the clock in 2016 when you adopted this policy. So based on that, coupled with the HRC purposely not having term limits for those very specialized positions, then the clock would start for this candidate in 2016 for the 12-year term.
So we're all legal then, is that right?
We're legal. We're legal.
Legal. Hi, Rebecca.
Legals.
How are you doing this afternoon? Good to see you.
I am good, thank you.
Good. Quite a resume you've got.
Well, thank you very much.
Took me a long time to read it.
Yes, it's very long.
Very long, but that's all right. You don't look old enough to have a long resume.
I know.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
So why do you want to do this? Tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get here, stuff like that, and what your interests are and why you want to serve. Just kind of a free flow. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and I come here via Lawrence, Kansas. And I actually came for a job that fell through, but I'm here. So I love it here. I love the way Carson City smells, if that's kind of I love it. I love the way sage smells. Perhaps even more than the pine. But anyway, yeah. I have a master's degree in museum studies, and so most of my professional career has been in museums, many of which have been historic buildings. I've just always been interested in history and vernacular architecture and primarily Victorian architecture. And I have a real desire to serve the community and work in the community. So.
Good. Okay. John, you want to start this time, John? Because Karen started last time, we're going to...
I assume you're familiar with our Blue Line District if you've been around a while.
Yes, I've walked it many times.
Fallen in love with the community, good. I'm not a big fan of hypothetical questions usually, but it seems to me it would fit here. If instead of a member of the Historic Resources Commission, you were made the Historic Resources Czar, what 3 changes would you like to see down there?
With the Blue Line specifically?
That district, yes.
Well, with the Blue Line specifically, I'm kind of sad that it's all chipped up and peeling off the sidewalk. So I would want that to be fixed. I don't know if it's politically correct to say, but I would like to see the attorneys and the senators out of there. I would like to see more residences, people taking care of their properties.
I was wondering how long it would take him.
Well, there's an ulterior motive, right? Because I want one of those old houses, and the ones that are taken up by the attorneys, I can't have.
I got one for you.
Okay, great. I don't know, and probably just more awareness of what we have.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're familiar with Jack's Bar.
Yes, I want Jack's Bar.
Well, now we're working towards the question here. Okay, at what point should a building be destroyed or restored? How do you know? How do you know what the answer is?
Oh, see, you get into a lot of, okay, so history-wise, I kind of want to save everything, right? But that's not necessarily possible. But with Jack's Bar, I would have to look at the structure of it. Is it reasonable to save it? Now, personally, I think today, right now, this very moment, I would think it needs to be saved and that it could be saved. But I don't know structurally what it's like. So if we were going to widen 5th Street, I think that would be awful to lose Jack's Bar. Yeah,
It's okay.
It's okay, I'm just looking for, the answer for you is you really never want to see an old building gone.
Well, but I don't necessarily want to see resources, say, for like just any old shack or a house that maybe is beyond repair. I mean, there are some issues. It's not necessarily that those things have to be saved, but ideally, yes. Okay, so ideally, yes. But I do see where there are instances where some buildings are not worth it.
Too cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
So how long do we let the owner keep it vacant to try and save it? So that's the real issue
Yeah,
on Jack's Bar, right? If it costs so much to do it, how long do we continue to let it stay vacant?
Right.
Right.
Except the pigeons, they need a home too. No, I don't know. I walk by there all the time and look in and see the pigeons, and I hope they can get out.
Yeah, I got a home for the pigeons. So my question for you, Rebecca, is what are your thoughts on an expansion of the historic district to the east side of Carson?
I am for that. Now, granted, I'm new to the area and I don't exactly know all of the history yet, but I do think, and from people I've talked to, feel that the east side is not recognized for its historical importance. And I walk over there and I see things, and a friend of mine who does like the blue trail, and she would like to see one over there. I would be supportive of that, definitely.
Passionate voices are heard when a remodel or new construction is proposed in the historic district, which has certain standards set that they have to meet.
Mm-hmm.
What is your approach when the majority speaking in the room do not want the project, but you know it's met all the criteria?
If it has, I am a rules person, so I like to go by rules, and if it's in the historic district, it does need to follow the rules. And if it has met all of the qualifications and the requirements, then I think it can go through. Now, whether I like it or not, it has to follow the rules, basically. Yeah.
Well, we've been through a few of those issues. And they're not easy decisions.
Right.
And I appreciate, you know, that you say that you're a rule person. I mean, because I think we all like to live by the rules, but it seems though every time we turn around though that, you know, there's a nuance to what a rule really is. But, you know, and it occurred, the thought, you know, when we're talking about the east side, you know, one of the things, and I know the board members up here know that, one of the things we've lost on the east side is Chinatown. You know, and not many people know that we had, I know Joel Dunn standing back there, he's probably not old enough, I had to remember Chinatown. Al is too. Al, you know, I forget Al's there. Look at Al, he's the assemblyman now, but remember Chinatown. So I think, you know, when we talk about east side, you're right. In some sense, we overlook it, but it's time we not. And we're never going to bring back something like Chinatown because it's all built over. But there's nothing wrong with signage in that area that could say, you know, this is where a big part of history was in this community. So, all right.
Right.
Anything you want to add, Rebecca? Any closing comments? Questions of us? Look like you.
I suppose not. This is just something that I've always, history and buildings is something I've always been interested in, and I would really like the opportunity to serve.
Well, good. I mean, your co-applicant is somebody who's been on that HRC for a long time, is well known in the historic field. So, you know, we have two great applicants, and it's really good to have a new person come in because we've had difficulty filling these positions. So we'll see where it goes, and you're welcome to sit down and we'll do the hard part here.
Okay.
Vote, okay?
All right.
All right. Board, what do you want to do?
Well, one thing I appreciated greatly was Michael saying that no matter what, he would stay and help.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed by that, and I actually take him at his word. I hate to lose brand-new candidates that have maybe new perspectives and new opportunities when we can keep Michael helping, since he offered to do that. I'm just saying, he put it on the record. And so I think that Rebecca would be a nice addition to that team. So I would like to pick Rebecca.
Well, as I've made known in the past, I score applicants on a scale of 1 to 5. Rebecca, I love your personality. You are extremely qualified, but I got to go with my score, and you're up against somebody that I have given the only 5 out of 5 that I've ever given to anybody. So I've got to throw my vote to Mike and encourage you to wait for the next opening and apply again, because everybody's absolutely right. You'd be a great addition. I don't want to lose you, but on the other hand, I don't want to lose Mike either.
And actually, I agree with Brad. I do the same scoring system, and you are only 2 points apart. And I'd love to have you on that board, but I also don't, I mean, I know Mike said that he'll be there, but I know Mike gets pulled in a lot of different directions. And so, you know, his expertise has been invaluable on that board and will continue to be. So my vote goes for Michael.
Since it's a historic commission and Mike has history and institutional memory, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go the same way too. But I echo my colleagues up here who are, all of them, because you are a wonderful candidate, and I agree with them. I also want to tell you I came here about a decade ago, and I applied for the Cultural Commission and didn't get it, and my wife about a year later applied for the Cultural Commission and didn't get it, and we've continued to be active in the community, obviously, and she's working as a secretary of a cultural organization here in town, the Brewery Arts Center. And I'm sitting up here, God knows why. But we've been active in the community. So please come back and apply for other things too. As a matter of fact, if I know my wife, after she sees your resume, she'll give you a call and get you involved with the Brewery Arts Center. So I'm going to go with Michael as well.
Well, that makes Lori and I irrelevant, but yeah. I will tell you, Rebecca, you know, these are hard decisions, and I was thinking to myself, maybe I'm going to be the tiebreaker here. And you would have gotten my vote as a tiebreaker. So just know where you are. I mean, and I think everybody up here would probably do the same thing, because we don't get people coming in with your kind of qualifications. And as I said, you're up against a guy, you know, who's, you know, kind of been an institution in that, and none of us want you to leave here thinking that you know, the qualifications and experience you bring is not important to us. So keep that in mind and bear with us as we go forward, okay?
I'll be back.
Good for you. That's good for you. That's what
And
Arnold says, good.
If there are other volunteer opportunities, I'm more than willing to be to be a part of
We'll
that.
keep that in mind. We'll
Yep.
keep that in mind. I'm sure that, you know, the city manager's thinking about that right now, I'm sure, so, all right. All
Or a
right,
job.
We'll take
How about-
contact information.
all right. We'll take a motion to appoint Michael Drews as,
I move to appoint, or to reappoint Michael Drews to the Historic Resources Commission in the Archaeology, Anthropology, and History professional category. For a term that expires in February of 2021.
there's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you again, Rebecca, very much. All right, all right. All right, those are the hard ones. Okay. Now let's take up 20 Charlie. This is legislation. V&T Railroad, you ready for this one, Mr. City Manager?
Sure am, Mr. Mayor. So as I briefed 2 weeks ago, SB 57 would modify the alignment of the northern part of the Carson City boundary with Washoe County. It would be in the vicinity of Duck Hill.
Are you doing Duck Hill or are you doing the V&T Railroad?
Oh, my apologies.
You want to do the
Yeah,
railroad first?
I introduced SB 57 and I started talking about Duck Hill. Sorry, folks. We've had a long day and no lunch.
That's all right. That's all right. Go. V&T
Let me get
Railroad.
back to SB 57, which modifies the V&T Commission. The highlights of the bill are it draws the commission down from 9 members to 5. It eliminates the membership from Lyon, Washoe, and Douglas counties. It also eliminates the members that were appointed, the commission members, that were appointed by the Senate Majority Leader and the Speaker of the Assembly. It further modifies the commission so that both the Virginia City Commission on Tourism and the Carson City Visitors Board would each get to appoint 1 member. So that would leave us with a 5-member board, and the board would be comprised of 1 member determined by this body, 1 member determined by the Story County Commission, 1 member that's determined by the Carson City Visitors Board, 1 member by the Virginia City Commission on Tourism, and 1 member who's going to be the governor's appointee.
None of those members don't necessarily have to be a board member of that organization.
And the way the bill,
There's an
that's a good
amendment.
question,
There's
Mr.
an amendment
Mayor.
to that.
The way the bill is written, they can be a member of the board, or they can be someone that you designate.
Because there's an amendment that provides for that, I think.
Correct.
All right.
Does that mean 6 members? Is that
5-member total board. Again, 1 member from Carson City, 1 member from Story County, a governor's appointee, 1 member from the Carson City Visitors Board, and 1 member from the Virginia City Commission on Tourism. So again, it'll neck it down from 9 to 5 members, potentially making decision-making a little bit more streamlined. It will also give the revamped commission the ability to leverage both visitor bureaus to do some of the marketing and potentially reduce some of their overhead, kind of get them, I hate to use a railroad pun, but get them more on track for long-term profitability. All of the counties involved, there are 5 counties involved, 3 that would be losing a member, and obviously us in Story County, which are the only 2 counties that actually have a dog in the fight, so to speak, when it comes to funding. All 5 counties testified when this bill was heard in committee in support. We did have a number of, I went and presented the city manager's opinion, as this body had not yet considered the bill, but I testified in support of the bill. The other counties did as well. There were a few people who did testify in opposition to it. Currently, the chair, who's also the governor's appointee, Dwight Millard, And there were two other members who also, two other folks who also came and testified in opposition. Joel Dunn, the executive director of the Carson City Visitors Bureau, is here. He's available to either make comments or answer your questions, whatever your pleasure would be.
I guess my only question is, what was their opposition to doing this? It seems to me that this is a more effective way of proceeding. So can you answer that?
Well, I can only talk about, and Joel may have a little bit more background than me, I can only talk about the testimony that was given in committee. Really, Dwight's opposition was not really based on, I think he was more in favor of just maintaining the status quo. Candy Duncan.
I think his opposition and Candy Duncan's opposition, if I heard it right, was not concerned necessarily with squeezing it down or membership on the board, but he was concerned that the other three counties had not paid anything.
I see.
And,
Right.
And he said, you know, I think, not putting words in his mouth, but I think he would, if he were here, he would say, keep it the way it is, but tell those three counties they got to pay.
I think that's
Now,
a fair
what
summation.
that does, I don't know, but I think that's what Dwight would say.
And I think Candy Duncan also brought up that keeping Washoe would be important because she saw the utility of maintaining marketing, you know, the Reno Tahoe marketing that they do and being able to incorporate Virginia City and the V&T in that marketing campaign. She saw the utility of keeping Washoe as part of it. And I think maybe Washoe did make a one-time financial contribution. I wasn't clear, but that did come up in the committee testimony.
I don't think Washoe's ever done it, but Douglas County's put 5 in at one time.
Douglas has? Okay.
Lyon County never.
Why were they in it in the first place then if they didn't participate
Well,
in the money?
I think I
I'm
can
missing-
answer that because I've been on that board for a while, and
Right.
we all have. But the reason is because it was a regional, you know, railroad that we believed, you know, helped all northern Nevada up here. And, you know, the argument can be made that, yeah, it does do that. Their other argument is no, you know, really doesn't do anything except for, some would even argue it only does something for Virginia City, but really it does something for both Virginia City and Carson City. But I think that was the argument, is that these 5 counties would share in it, in room nights and things of that nature. Those 3 counties would tell you that, you know, they're not so certain that's happened.
And the legislation was left up to them for each of the 5 counties to determine their participation? There wasn't a requirement
You know,
to pay?
yeah, I mean, it's kind of odd that it says, you know, there's no mandate that says they have to contribute.
Right.
No mandate, no.
So Chris Bentley has said in the past that he's interested in bringing the V&T down to his new distillery in Douglas County. So if that were to occur in the future and this bill were to be passed, was there any conversation about that in the hearing? I mean, I can see that that could be a public-private partnership at that point and just let Chris pay for everything, which he can probably afford. So was there any conversation about that?
Really, the only testimony in the committee that came up in terms of the expansion beyond the current footprint of the railroad, and I think it was Dwight Millard who covered it, would be the existing right-of-way that the commission already owns in the Carson River Canyon area. That would include bringing it down to the area. I don't have a map to point it out for the people at home, but to the area where they would have that racetrack turnaround. That was the only discussion in terms of expansion in the committee that came up. I think peripherally there were some comments either about continuing it to Douglas County or even coming into Carson City, into the city center itself. But really the only testimony was the one section that runs along the Carson City River, or the Carson River.
Any public comment on this one? Anybody? Joel, you want to say something?
Thank you for the record, Joel Dunn, Executive Director of the Carson City Visitors Bureau. I've been a part of the discussions before introducing the BDR that was presented by Story County. And I have to tell you, I think it's been a long time coming. I think we're at a point now where we have a 9-member commission that was put together for the construction of the VNT. And I think we're due now as stakeholders an opportunity to have a commission that focuses on the operational side. So if it does make it through the legislative session, my understanding is that we'll look at an operational assessment as early as October of this year, and hopefully looking at maybe some implementation of changes as early as the 2018 season. I will be taking this to my board. Once again, I'm speaking just as the executive director and voicing my support in the bill draft. We are already in the game. We continue to market the VNT Railroad. Right this year in the fiscal year 17 budget, I have set aside a little over $300,000 that I spend in a marketing project that has an inherent benefit for the VNT Railroad. So we also have a little under $3 million that we're going to continue to pay through 2023, the sunset of the bond. So we're in it. It's an asset, and we need to find a way to have it operate in the black.
Well, you know, Joel, just a discussion on the VNT Railroad. It's sort of living on fumes right now. Steam, I guess, is what it would be. And, you know, because the funding for, you know, hardline is gone. You know, it's not that. And it may be that, you know, we can find some money somewhere to drive it down into the track down into the river valley and do a donut down there and come back up to Eastgate. But, you know, the large chunks of funding are no longer there. I mean, you know, we got a bunch out of, you know, $15 million from the feds. Those things, we've applied for several Tiger grants. They're not there. And so, you know, we're always looking for, and there's, every time we turn around, you know, it's another issue, and now we got flood damage on that railroad up there. You know, we're applying to FEMA and all that stuff, you know, to get help to reimburse that, but it's difficult to do that. And I mention that because, you know, both Story County and I think the Visitors Bureau, you know, have some funds that they could put towards the VNT Railroad, but, you know, from what I'm understanding is that you guys want to know how those monies are being spent for the best interest of the railroad. And in my heart, you know, I can't say, you know, just pay the money and then don't worry about it. I mean, so, you know, that's kind of where I fall down on this issue, is that, you know, yeah, I'd like to see things stay the way they are, but at the end of the day, for the benefit of the railroad and benefit of applying funds for, you know, of those who have, you know, what Nick would say, a dog in a fight, and the overall marketing of it, and the bookkeeping and things of that nature. I mean, the engineer would stay the same, and the lawyer would stay the same. But I think, you know, in the bookkeeping and the marketing and stuff like that, you know, you keep candy on and things like there. But I think that, you know, the railroad would, we need to try a little bit different dynamic there. I mean, but it's not going to be, you know, just because we change the makeup of this board, is not going to mean that the troubles of the railroad, and the troubles of money, I mean, everybody's got money troubles, that they're going to go away. I mean, so, you know, if we do this, you know, I think that you got to bring back to your board, you know, freeing up some of that capital there, because they're going to be asking for that. And I know Story County's already inked in and said they'll do the same thing. Okay, all right. That's my 2 cents, and I'm sticking to it. So. All right. Board members, you want to take a vote on this? You want to not?
Yeah.
Votes in order. Go.
Okay. I move to convey to the 2017 legislature that the Carson City Board of Supervisors supports, with the amendments as discussed, SB 57, a bill that revises provisions relating to the Nevada Commission for the reconstruction of the VNT Railway.
Motion, a couple seconds on a motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, now we'll take up Duck Hill. All right.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, what I want to do is very briefly introduce the bill. I would like to point out for the record that we do have the sponsor of the bill here, Assemblyman Al Kramer. and a number of the residents that we're going to talk about here. So we're here to talk about Assembly Bill 140. This bill would modify the county line between Washoe and Carson City. I'm going to orient you to the map that I currently have up. In my bottom right screen here is the north-seeking arrow. I'm going to trace along the Interstate 580 freeway here with my cursor. Carson Tahoe Hospital is right here that I'm highlighting. So the area that we're talking about in yellow, this is the existing county line between Washoe and Carson. The proposed boundary would be the green line, and I apologize for people at home if it doesn't really stand out here, but I'm going to trace that green line. Okay, so if everyone saw that, you can see the trace of the proposed county line. Everything in blue are the existing Washoe County parcels. Most of the discussion is going to center on what I'm now circling right here, which are the majority of the parcels that make up the residential area of Duck Hill. So now that the orientation is done, I would like to introduce Assemblyman Kramer and offer him the ability to make comments on the bill.
Welcome, Assemblyman Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Morano. Al Kramer, Assemblyman District 40, which includes Carson City and the eastern portion of Washoe and Pleasant Valley, which includes the area where Duck Hill is. And yes, I was approached by some of the people behind me who live on Duck Hill to say they would like to be in Carson City rather than Washoe County. And it wasn't because they think Carson City is so wonderful and that this is just a great place to live in that. It's other reasons, and when they come up, they'll.
Yeah, you're really after our sport?
Let me rephrase that. It wasn't only because they felt Carson City was so wonderful, but they'll have some reasons for doing that. I want to go over a couple of things here. If you'll note on this map that he's got on the wall, do you see where it says section 36 over there on the center left side, a little bit up from the bottom? If you were to look at the word 36 or the number 36 on that, that's essentially where the boundary line is on the west side of the freeway for dividing Carson and Washoe County. And it's odd, but the name of that road like there is named County Line Road. So it's pretty definitive on the west side as to where the boundary is. Its boundary is County Line Road. On the east side, though, it's not so definitive as though there's a geographic marker. There's no river, there's no mountain ridge, there's no road or something like that that really delineates it. And the boundary line just goes across there and just, it was just drawn. And I believe that years ago this was drawn because the List Ranch owned that property, and most of the List Ranch is already in Washoe County. And so the boundary line was drawn with the boundary of the List Ranch at the time. Well, now that ranch was split up. The state parks owns part of that, and these parcels we're talking about here, these 18 and 19 parcels, are the rest of that property. And if you were to drive this and you got off the freeway on East Lake Boulevard, when you got off the road and you got down, and you remember the Julian Smith Ranch where the black and white cows are there, well, that's on your left, and immediately after you get off the freeway and you get down there, there's a road that turns right. That's Duck Hill Road. So we're talking about, as you get off the freeway, all the property to the right, those 3 empty fields, and there's 3 houses on the right on the downhill side of the hill, and you turn right on Duck Hill Road, you go up the top of the hill, and then you'll kind of make a left turn, and then it goes up a ways, and then it makes a right, and it makes a left and goes up even higher and higher. But it's those properties that are served by this road, Duck Hill Road, that we're talking about. Now, I'll talk dollars just for a minute. This property, they're not doing it because taxes are cheaper in Carson. taxes are definitely cheaper in Washoe County, that part of Washoe County, than they are in Carson. So this is not an effort to flee high taxes in Washoe County. But they're paying something under $50,000 a year in taxes to Washoe County. So yes, I would expect Washoe County to not be in favor of this. But there are reasons why it's a good idea, and these reasons ought to be listened to, and I would rather you hear them from those people sitting behind me. So I'm going to let this part of the discussion go and call these people up to make their presentation, okay?
Al, before you go, just one quick question. I'm just curious why the boundary line doesn't just follow the east-west line between section 25 and 30 and 36 and 31. I understand adding the Duck Hill portion, but what's the thought process between parcels 553, 2054, 55, 56? I don't see any houses there, so I'm just curious why they're being included.
I'm sorry, Brad.
If you follow the yellow line,
Yes.
right, that's right there in the middle, why would that line not just continue over and include Duck Hill? Why is it including the property
okay.
north of that yellow line?
Actually, when I submitted this to LCB for drafting and it was given to state parks, that's the line I had. And what they told me is over there to the far left where it hits the road, where it hits East Lake Boulevard, it creates a very, very small parcel that would be then have to be carved out of that on the north side of East Lake Boulevard that would be its own parcel number. And I understand that's why they chose just, since it's land owned by state parks, they said it doesn't matter which county state parks it's in, let's not make that orphan parcel. It was kind of, that's how it was explained to me. But whether that has what difference does it make from my standpoint, I didn't really care either way, frankly. And so I went ahead and let the drawing be the way they had changed it to be, because that was where I drew my line first off.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, members of the Board of Supervisors. For the record, my name is Romaine Gilliland. I live at 480 Duck Hill Road. I'm also the president of the Duck Hill Property Owners Association. And yes, we did seek Mr. Kramer, ask him the possibility of being annexed into Carson City. We've also talked to the mayor on prior occasions. It is primarily because of inadequate emergency services, but secondarily because we feel more affiliated to Carson City, enjoy Carson City. Not to contradict you, but we love Carson City, and we would like to be, and we would, and we would like to be part of Carson City. I will address first the inadequacy of emergency services. We have on multiple occasions, and this has not happened to me personally, it has happened to people in the audience, and I would like to say that we have a majority of the members of the Property Owners Association either present or present by proxy today, but we have sought emergency services on the Hill from Washoe County. On multiple occasions, we have called 911 and asked for ambulance services. They have not been provided. And when I say they have not been provided, I mean literally they have not been provided. In some cases, after more than an hour had passed, we sought help from family members. In the most recent case, there was a stroke victim, and we sought 911. And while we did get a volunteer paramedic from the volunteer fire station from Central Washoe Valley, who did come to the house, after nearly 30 minutes, there was going to be a no-show from REMSA, so the individual was instructed to load the person into their personal automobile and drive them to the hospital. We do not consider that to be adequate emergency services. In other cases, we've had burglaries on the Hill, and in one case, Washoe County did not show up for more than an hour. I will tell you that the crime was solved. It was solved by the Carson City Sheriff. And for that, we very much appreciate the help and assistance. Other than the emergency items, We live in closer proximity to Carson City Community Services. I did submit late to you a petition that we're putting together for the state legislature. It has been signed by the majority of the members. We are still seeking a couple of signatures. They are anticipated to arrive, but the people are currently out of the area. And in that petition, it, for example, provides the distance to community services. An example is the Carson Tahoe Hospital. We can all see it from our front windows, 3.5 miles away. Renown, 25.5 miles. Carson Community Center, 6.5 miles. The closest one in Washoe County is 23 miles. I can tell you that my wife and myself daily use the Mac Center for a 4-mile walk. It's been good for our health, and we very much appreciate you doing that. And there are several other items that we've listed, the schools and the distances, the public library. We socialize and we support Carson City services and activities. And while emergency services, we hope, may never be needed, we believe as part of Carson City that we will receive timely services from you, and we would appreciate that occurring. Again, we would like to be part of Carson City. Assemblyman Kramer and I reached out for the Washoe County manager, Washoe County manager, as well as our local commissioner, and a meeting was set up with both of them. We did talk to the county manager. The commissioner was a no-show. And that's again indicative of how we feel about where we are. We know that we're in the far southern part of Washoe County. We feel like poor stepchildren. We do pay our taxes. We get no services. We feel no attachment to Washoe County. We would like to belong to Carson City.
Is there, Nick, or do we have a mutual aid agreement with Washoe County that covers Duck Hill, or there? I mean,
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
So right now, if there's an emergency up there, it's Washoe County's responsibility. I mean, we don't have a contractual responsibility with Washoe County to do anything there. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Right. And what's who maintains the road up there, Romaine?
We, as part of the Property Owners Association, we maintain the road on Duck Hill, virtually from East Lake up to the top of our residences. And that's part of our assessment that we have on an annual basis to maintain that road.
So if we moved the line, would we have any responsibility for the road?
No, I do not believe you would. We would continue to be responsible for the maintenance of that road.
Is the road capable of accepting a fire truck?
Well, I'm not sure the answer to that, but I can tell you that there was a Carson City fire truck that came up the road about 2 or 3 days ago. So I think they might have been testing it to see.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Mayor. So I've put up another picture here, another overhead photo. It's on another computer, so I can't trace it as I'm speaking, but it is the road that comes up off of East Lake Boulevard and then into the residential area of Duck Hill. So I did ask the fire chief, I asked the chief and our sheriff to take a look at it, give me any comments back if they thought there may have been an issue with it. And to be fair, the fire chief came back and he said they had a really difficult time turning the fire truck around. He did express some concerns about getting up and getting access, especially in the event of a wildfire. It is a privately maintained road, so obviously during the wildfire season, he had a concern about that. I think the residents do their own snow removal, so he did bring that up as well, that it could be difficult to get an emergency vehicle up there. Certainly a fire engine, it would be very difficult for him to turn it around. So that is the input from the fire chief, and I think you get a picture of the road and see what the status of it is.
But that would be the same impact for those residents that they currently have, even if it was still Washoe County. The fire truck would have the exact same
It would be
issue. So
different.
a condition that you're aware of because you live there? You recognize that that service might be difficult?
We do recognize that service might be difficult, but we would appreciate an effort to have some services.
Romaine, are there any of the homeowners on Duck Hill that oppose coming into Carson City? Is it 100% in support of this?
So we are having difficulty contacting one out-of-state individual. He has never expressed any opposition in the past. We do have annual meetings, and this has been a topic of annual meetings for the last few years, and we do publish an agenda, and we can only take a vote on those items that are agendized. But in the general conversation between our group of 10 or so, there has always been an enthusiastic indication that we would all like to be part of Carson City. And again, we are having difficulty contacting an individual to confirm 100%. That's TW.
Does it include, and I think I know the answer to this, Romaine, does it include Julian Smith's ranch?
No, it does not.
Julie's.
Excuse me, Al Kramer for the record.
It doesn't include that
I
side.
did call
Julian.
Julian and asked him if he wanted to be included in this, and his response was that if we tried to include his ranch, it probably would never be approved. While he would like to be, he said you'd probably better off without my trying to be in on this. However, the property that he owns across the street, which is included in this, those 3 vacant lots, he feels real good about those belonging to Carson City.
And I would like to go back and comment on one item. We do recognize that the road, and if you go up that road, it's relatively level till you get to 300 Duck Hill, and then the slope of the road increases dramatically. And a couple of years ago, we resurfaced the area from that point up to the top. We have already presented to the members of our Property Owners Association the cost to maintain the road from what I'll call that base at 300 Duck Hill down to East Lake. And that has been approved. It was approved last fall. And the cost has been identified, and we recognize that we were unable to do that until the spring of this year. So we are going forward to improve what I'll call the base of that road down to East Lake Boulevard.
And utilities, water and sewer, that's all taken, you're on septic or well up there then?
We are on septic or well. Let me rephrase that. I know I'm on septic and well. I believe everyone else is as well, but I can only really state for myself. Senator Kramer has been reminding me, and this is true, that up until December of this year, we were actually serviced by Carson City Waste Management. And unbeknownst to us, Washoe County renegotiated the waste management pickup, which included us, did not reach out to us for any kind of comments. We found that in December it was turned over to Washoe County Waste Management. Our rates were increased and our service has deteriorated. At least 2 people who are here in the audience have had difficulty with waste management, not including the difficulty I've had. And that includes some of the difficulty they have on where Waste Management wanted us to take the cans for service. Now, I can tell you for years and years, Washoe County Carson City location has had no issues. Everything's been fine. Moved it to Washoe County Waste Management. They don't like where we put the waste receptacles. They'd like us to take them down to the bottom of the hill. There's several issues that have come up. One of the members here in the audience has reached out for Washoe County manager, was referred to the assistant manager. Assistant manager never returned his call. I also, when I met with the manager, mentioned it, and while he admitted there were issues, and I says, if you find any of the information that we're providing you to be inaccurate, or if you need any additional information, or if you have any additional information that you believe would be beneficial to us, please reach out for me. Left my contact information. We do not hear from Washoe County political representatives.
And now, where's Washoe County on this bill, if you know?
The Washoe County lobbyists came in and spoke to me Tuesday, and they said, well, we're not for it. And I said, well, I didn't really expect them to be for it. And they said that their really only objection to it is that it's not the money. It's a precedent that can be set that if you get people who don't like the county they're in, they can go to another county and just petition the legislature to go to another county. I says, well, it's really not that they don't like Washoe County and like Carson City. It's the reason they don't like Washoe County and like Carson City. It's the services that are there. And she said, well, you can work that out, can't you? I said, well, supposedly there's been a lot of years to work it out and a lot of complaints to work it out, and the services haven't been improved. So they see it as a service issue that needs to get the service better. And these people see it as more than one service over a long period of time where it's been poor service after poor service after poor service and lack of responses back and that sort of thing. And it's more than a single issue.
If I could add to that, there's a pattern of avoidance. I mean, we're there, and ironically, we're on the Carson City side of the mountain, so our view is Carson City. And we just feel like the poor stepchildren of Washoe County.
So what would be our downside? If the road is actually maintained by the residents, there would be no utility services from Carson City because they're on their own wells. The sheriff has indicated there's no issue with providing service to that. The fire department service would be consistent with what the road is and the ability to get a fire truck now. So I'd consider that one a pass, no change. You have what you have, you're only going to get the same service that we could potentially give you. So then the downside or the discussion point is, do we argue with Washoe County over it? And so I guess I don't know that argument would be even the right word, is that, do we want to allow these people to come into Carson City? And then we let the legislature decide whether there's a precedence or issues with, how else do people redress their government if they really don't have an opportunity? So part of this for me is, I think they have a right to ask and redress their needs. So when I look at that side, unless I can find a negative for Carson City, and I'm not seeing any, unless I'm missing something, you all can help me. So.
Can I offer one more way to look at this? Carson City has, in the territory for Carson City, we actually have some land that is on the east side of the Carson River, and so it's accessed by Vicky Lane from the Johnson Lane area. You can't get to Carson from there, so to speak, all right? If those people, and I think there's like 4 households, okay, if those people were to come to Carson and say, we really feel like we're part of Douglas County, that we're part of the Johnson Lane population, would you be sitting here saying, oh, no, by golly, you're Carson City and we're not going to let you go? I think you'd be looking out for the services available to those people and not expect them to be kind of and that's a lot more land, and maybe there's some other aspects we'd look at, and I'm not here to be a proponent of that one way or the other, but I think you have to look at it, how would you feel if the shoe were on the other foot, and that's the example I wanted to give you. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, City Board, I'm Debbie Sheltra, and I live at 300 Duck Hill, the White House on the extreme left, and I'm the last flat property. That road was cut off in 60 or 61 when the freeway came in. That road used to go to the top of Duck Hill, and it was a T-stop at the top of the hill, so we got bifurcated by the highway department. Let me answer some of the specific questions that you guys have mentioned. I spoke with Brett Hansen, the district manager in the waste management in Carson City. They have no problem taking us back. They gave us wonderful service. The ranch I'm on has been there, the house has been there since 1960, owned by Merle Stewart since 1970, 71, and we're partners.
He's a Navy captain, too.
He's a Navy captain, and he is the one who had the stroke. And it took me, I'm going to cry, it took me 27 minutes to get the paramedics 5.5 miles from Bowers Mansion I talked with Stacy Jomi when he was still your fire chief, and he told me he would be glad to take care of us and have us up there, and that he could make it up there in the max, probably 8 minutes. If Merle had had a heart attack instead of a stroke, he would have been dead. Then REMSA never came. Washoe County has allowed REMSA to be the private and sole carrier, and they dictate how they're going to come. And Washoe County, for many years, I've been an activist in Washoe Valley since the 70s. They have given them a contract-free reign that it's best case effort south of Mount Rose Highway. They never came that hour. I had to transport Merle to the hospital. They said, was I capable? They put him in the car for me. When I got to the hospital, he opened the door and fell out. He's still under medical care right now in Southern California. So that's one really strong issue. We don't have ambulance service. 96% of 911 calls are paramedic calls, as I've heard stated by Stacy, and I've heard by our Chief Charlie Moore. You have little vehicles that'll go up that hill. We all have four-wheel drives, and I believe those are four-wheel drive, but they're small. And when I had a renter at the house, in fact, the sheriff called you guys, and they were there. Your sheriff responds a lot faster when we need help. You talked about, was there some mutual aid? I don't know if it was mutual aid or what you physically call it, but yes, there was an agreement signed that anything south of Bellevue Bridge, that Carson City would get a call if Washoe County Fire and or REMSA couldn't get on it right away. I asked about this as recently as this last month, and I was told that REMSA has to call. The fire department at Bowers cannot make that call. By the way they've structured, by the contract Washoe County has been willing to sign and just re-signed last fall of 16, and they were aware of these problems, and they re-signed the contract anyway. So we are the stepchildren. They don't care if we die, and they have said, you people are too few. We have to give the services to the masses, and you're not the masses. You're really nobody out there. Now let me tell you, I taught in Carson City and was with the school district for several years. There was never a day I couldn't get out, and I was on the other side of the lake for a while. Washoe Lake. Carson City is a marvelous community. You have marvelous people here. All my medical services are on Medical Parkway or whatever the road is by the hospital. All my doctors and dentists are right there. I spend my money, I buy my gas, I go to dinner, I do all my shopping and all my financial spending. I don't have to drive as far, I don't burn as much gas, but as a teacher, let me tell you the price of the children. We don't have any children on Duck Hill right now. But right now, the children in East Washoe City, which is closer to Reno than I am, they're on the bus from 6 o'clock in the morning until school starts at 8:30. They get there about a quarter after. They're within about 5 minutes of the state law that says Washoe County has to come up with a new school source, like call you guys and say, will you take the kids? Washoe County doesn't care about the children who've come out of that area, standing in the dark. Your school buses, if we ever do have children in that area, comes down the off-ramp anyway to go to Lakeview. It used to pick up kids on Duck Hill at the base where the mailboxes are. We're begging you to take us in. We're not going to survive. Merle's lucky that he survived. If it had been a heart attack, he would not have survived their lack of due diligence. And they don't have a paramedic truck. They have one now, but they can't use it unless REMSA gives them the specific time each time they want to use it. They would have to say, and then no, REMSA will say no because they're paid under contract, some contractual thing by how many runs they're doing. That's how they put their stats together, if I understand it correctly. So the fire truck from you guys, your paramedic truck has come up our road, and although he says there's problems, we have technically a 12-foot road, private, I guess, but it's still, your guys have been there before. Your garbage trucks have taken care of us since the 70s that I know of. Brett Hansen has no problem coming back and picking us up and giving us the service we've had. Stacy Jomi told me he would have no problem getting up there when he was still your fire chief. And if there are any questions, I would like to answer them, but I am begging you to please support us with gusto. We want to come, and we want to be good citizens in Carson City. We spend our money there now. Our doctors, our business experiences are there. There's no reason not to take us. We love you.
Mr. Mayor, I have to go. I have an appointment, but I need you to hear from Sam over here, and he's got one more, and I'm sorry I can't stay, but I think they've expressed the gist of
no,
what's
I
going
got you.
on.
And I know you got to go, but let me just say that, you know, one of the things, at least I don't think we do, we don't want to get in a fight with Washoe County, okay?
We understand that.
So if we support this, and I suspect that's kind of where we're going to go, if we support this, please remember that, you know, the laboring war on this is, you know, we're okay bringing folks into our community, but we're not really, it's not the city government that's asking for that to get done. And I want you to make that clear to Washoe County and when you speak on the record, because the last thing I want to do is get in a fight where, you know, I've got Washoe County saying one thing and Carson City saying another. We're okay picking up because we all understand the service issue up there.
I understand that 100%, and what I'd actually like to see is a paragraph saying that you would accept this and welcome this, but it is not. It didn't come from you guys. It's come from the citizens, and this is we're in the business of offering service to our citizens.
And as Ms. Shelter knows,
And
you know, I've been one who wouldn't mind getting a little more. That's property. That's all right.
All the way to Bellevue?
Yeah, a little more property.
Especially people that like
You know,
us.
Extend that out there to Bellevue Ridge, you know.
The
that's all
people south of Bellevue, the south end of Franktown, have begged your mayor to take us
Right.
in for a long
All right.
time.
All right, we'll go here. Sam, is that it? Did I get your name right?
Yeah, maybe my comments are after the fact now, but I disagree with the fire department. When we had the waterfall fire, there were fire trucks all over that hill. There's an easy place to turn around at the horseshoe that you see that goes up to my house. And by the way, I built all the houses on that hill. So I know the trucks have been up there. I had semis up there hauling material up there. So I know that the fire trucks can get up and down that hill, and they demonstrated it during the waterfall fire. But I think there's something else that I think hasn't been pointed out here. And if I could go to the map and show you, this piece of property is in Carson City. This is a Carson City piece of property. Let me show you where it's at. This piece of property right here is Carson City property.
Where's the, Sam, point to the, where's the freeway on that one?
I apologize, Mr. Mayor, I don't hear well, so you got to speak a little
I'm
louder.
sorry, and I'm not speaking too clearly either. Bottom, where's the freeway there?
The freeway is,
So the piece that's in Carson City is right alongside the hillside there on the
yeah,
freeway?
so the Carson City property borders the freeway.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could just point out for the people who are watching at home, so the gentleman just pointed to a strip of land, if you see where my cursor is right now, is that correct?
That's correct.
That is the parcel that he was referring to that lies in Carson City. The mayor then asked about where is the 580 freeway, and I'm now highlighting the 580 freeway here.
Well, I mentioned that just because from a historical standpoint, there's a tree right in there somewhere. That tree has been.
That tree is on the property line.
Is the tree on the property line?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think there used to be a school there, or that was part of where the railroad had. But one of the former mayors used to play around that tree, former.
Good, I didn't know that history.
Yeah, there's that tree. Every time I go by it, I think of Edgar Norton. So anyway, okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add just a couple of items. I do want to add a little bit to one of the questions I was asked about, do we have 100% support? One of the parcels is owned by Nevada Energy. And while we've asked for either a yes or a no, we may have put them into an awkward position. They would like to abstain. They do not have the same dog in the fight that the residences have, but they do have a piece of property that is within that area. So I want to clarify that.
We got it.
The other item, and I also, as well in the past, have talked to Stacy Giomi about the houses up there, and he indicated that if there ever really was a fire, Carson City would come out, and they would come up the hill. So that was his perspective when he was chief.
Wouldn't expect anything else from our folks. All right. All right. Any other public comment?
I would like to point out that the Truckee Meadows Fire Department did not defend any of the houses in the Franktown Little Valley fire unless they were right on Franktown Road. So it doesn't really matter. They wouldn't defend us if they had to go up on that hill anyway. So if we have some defense from Carson City, that's better than no defense of what we had from Truckee Meadows.
All right. All right. Any other public comment? We got it from the homeowners. All right. Board, what do you want to do?
I'll make the motion.
Motion's in order. Go. Motion, so pretty careful what Al said.
I move to convey to the 2017 legislature that the Carson City Board of Supervisors would support the amendments discussed here today on AB 141, a bill that revises the boundary line between Carson City and Washoe County, understanding that Carson City did not initiate this, that this has come from the residents themselves.
AB 140.
That's what I said, 140.
Good motion. Anybody want to second the motion? There's a motion and a second on the motion. A couple seconds on the motion. On further discussion? Discussion's in order.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask our city manager to check. As I understand it, there's 3 parcels up there that don't have any homes on them, owned by a rancher who's across and doesn't want to be included because he's afraid it would make the deal go away. And I'm just curious what he intends to do with those for the questions that we've asked. I don't think there is a downside, as Lori asked, but I would like to know if there's anything prospectively in mind that he would like to do up there, because that would increase the services. So that's not a big deal, but I'm just curious because
I've known Julie all my life.
Well, you ask him then.
I'll ask him. I've known Julie all my life.
Can I
suspect
clarify that, though? Because my understanding is that 3 lots would transfer over, but the ranch wouldn't.
3 lots would, yeah.
That was my understanding.
He just wants to know what he's going to do with them.
Just what he might do.
Yeah. All right. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Unanimous. Thanks. All right.
Thank you very much for your
Go forward.
consideration.
All right. We're now on 21 Alpha. No, we don't have to do that one. That was pulled.
Are we done?
Are we done?
Comment?
All right, we're on concluding public comment. Anybody want to add anything at the end? I don't see any. Board members, are we ready to adjourn? Unless there's an objection, we're adjourned.